but people who began to turn to drugs, turn to cocaine, turn to crack, turn to some type of opiate. Why? Because they're hurting. And so what drugs does is a temporary escape from the pain that's in the soul. And so people don't understand that until you deal with the pain that's in the heart, then the drug is only going to compound it. That's where we are, Hanne. We're in an epidemic because people don't know how, they don't have someone to help them, or they're not truthful enough to come clean and say, I'm still dealing with hurt.
We are here with the Doctor of Hope, Dr. Brenda Caldwell. It's such an honor for us to have you here in our studio. We have come all the way from Europe to meet up with you and to hear all the wise words you have to give to so many hurting souls in this world today. You are a psychologist and an empowerment speaker, and you travel the nation, the United States, soothing and helping so many people get rid of bitterness and anger. You're also an acclaimed author with books such as From Charcoal to Diamond and Surgery for the Soul. And your story is just such an interesting story. We are here in the United States noticing some terrible facts. I do believe around 27 million Americans are on illicit drugs. 7 out of 10 Americans, according to the renowned Mayo Clinic, use prescription drugs. It seems that there has been a deterioration in the American culture from the time that you had some value systems to a sense of hopelessness today, in which people turn to drugs in an epidemic measure.
We are facing a epidemic in our country here in America, Hanne, and it has to do with opiates. We have, as you said, what the numbers are, 27 million people who are in some way addicted to some type of prescription drug or illegal drugs, or what have you. It is out of control. It has gotten the government even involved in trying to control the number of opiates that people can even get now. And so the problem with that is that you have some people who, for instance, if you broke your leg, you've never been on drugs or anything, you're in pain. And so the way that the crisis is such now that you may not get the pain medicine that you legally or should be able to get because of the opiate epidemic. So in other words, everyone is almost paying a penalty because of the misuse and because of the abuse. So people who really do need those drugs, if you will, just pain medicine, I should say, to get through a crisis period or get through a legitimate physical pain in their life, is now being, to some degree, penalized because of the issue. But the issue is greater. And you talk about why. Why is there such a drug epidemic? Why is there a crisis in this country where you have teenagers that are literally getting so addicted to some type of narcotic that that many of them are dropping out of school. Many of them have no aspiration. Many of them, their minds are gone. They don't have the wherewithal to even think about their dreams anymore because they've gotten a hold to some type of drug, and that drug has altered them, and now they've become addicted. And then some of them have gotten their parents legal, prescription medicine, and they've become addicted. But what is the root reason? Every problem has a root. Drugs are not really the root. Drugs are symptomatic of a greater problem. And so we're talking about why are so many people addicted to drugs. One of the things is that what do drugs do? It's a temporary fix to a much greater problem of pain. And so drugs, for many people who become addicted, and I'm not talking about people who use it and they become addicted because they used it for an arm element or the ailment or something, but people who began to turn to drugs, turn to cocaine, turn to crack, turn to some type of opiate. Why? Because they're hurting. And so what drugs does is a temporary escape from the pain that's in the soul. And so people don't understand that until you deal with the pain that's in the heart, then the drug is only going to compound it. That's where we are, Hanne. We're in an epidemic because people don't know how, they don't have someone to help them, or they're not truthful enough to come clean and say, I'm still dealing with hurt because I was raped, I was molested, I was beaten, and I have recurring memories of that. And in order to cope with that, in order to deal with that, I've got to escape. I've got to use drugs. I've got to, use alcohol. I need a temporary fix. That's why it's just become an epidemic, because we're not dealing with the issues that are, again, I talked about before, the uns, having unhealed hurt, unresolved issues, and unmet needs. When we have something that is unhealed in our heart, then it opens us up to try to escape. Or if you have something that's unmet, for instance, if you need love, your father was never there. In our country, we have a major issue of fatherlessness and so forth. And so again, that can open the door to a teenager starting to tamper with drugs because they really feel abandoned, they feel rejected, they feel unwanted. Again, a temporary fix. And now we're in a major crisis. And that is truly the truth. We've got to deal with the issues in our heart that keep us bound, that keep us needing to have something that is a pseudo answer. It's a false answer. It's a fake answer. And it only compounds the problem.
Because it's a massive industry. I think
Yes,
annual revenue here in the United States is around $100 billion US.
It's big business.
And it's big business throughout the world. And often we compare it with the 1930s Chicago mobster and mob rule. And at that time, I mean, it was alcohol and other substances, but it was not put into the kind of system that it is today. And as I have lived in South America and the Middle East and Africa for very many years, I lived in Africa. I've been to many of the so-called third world countries. Okay, Brazil is an exception because there's a lot of drug use there. But in Africa, for example, you don't at all have the same scale. And people are happy even though they're not that affluent.
Right.
Although there's a lot of affluence in Africa too. It's such a rising continent. Yeah. So with a high rate of middle class and all of that. But still you don't find that kind of desperate, destitute and helplessness that you do find in the West. And I find that to be so contradictory. Because we say, oh, the poor people in Africa.
Yes.
Well, they're much happier than you, aren't
Absolutely.
they?
Absolutely.
And they're content with life when you come there. I mean, everybody has something to give and they're making a big party. And go to Uganda, man. The whole country is one big party. And with families and strong family relations. So I just think there must be something that we lost in the West.
We lost a lot of our values in the West. In America, for instance, the region of the country where I live is called the Bible Belt, down in Memphis, Tennessee. And on every corner, there's a church. Every corner, there's a church that you can go to. But even though that's the case, you don't find people even though it's very much part of the Southern culture of the United States and other parts of the United States, church as it relates and religion as it relates has lost some of its place, if you will, as a priority in people's lives, because we have so much vying for our attention. You know, with the advent of technology, I mean, we have so much that can distract us. And so people we seem to have gotten away from the values that are simple, that help us to stay rooted and grounded and happy, if you will. Because if you're truly happy and you're at peace, then there are no holes in the heart or soul for you to have to medicate or self-medicate. And so we live in a time where, you know, there's so much comparison, so much competition, so much of this part of the Western culture causes people to really feel bad about themselves, because if you don't have the top job, or if you're not driving the best car, living in the best house, then you tend to compare yourself to someone else. And then those kinds of things can, again, open you up to feeling like you've got to do something to make yourself feel better. And that's not the case. Like you say, I went to Africa a couple of years ago. The simplicity of Kenya and the children there and the people there, they didn't have anything that our children have by way of cell phones and iPads and all of the, you know, the modern trappings, if you will. They didn't have any of that. But those kids were as happy as they could be. They loved life because it was simple. So America has become so complicated. We've gotten away from just the simple values of loving God, loving family, treating people the way we want to be treated. So it's our values that we've seemed to have gotten away from, that have opened us up to just searching for something else. It's like, it can't be that easy. It can't just be you love God, you treat people right. It has to be something else. But people don't have a sense of purposeness. And that's another problem. When you lose a sense of purposeness, if you don't feel that you belong, everybody has a need to belong. Everyone has a need to feel important. Everyone has a need to feel accepted. Every human being has to have a sense of purposeness. So there's so much hopelessness here, Hanne, in America today. People don't seem to have hope, going back to that word, hope. And one of the acronyms of hope is holding on, praying expectantly. So it's like we've lost that desire to think that our lives can get better. So people, again, can turn to drug or some other substance abuse to cover the need, because they don't feel like they have any reason to live, when we do have a reason to live. Every day, every last one of us, we have a reason. So someone who's watching your show right now, the Herland Report, they're watching at the right moment, at the right time, because they need to be reminded that their lives have value, that they matter, that they count, that they are not forgotten about. Those kinds of words spoken into someone's spirit can give them a reason to have hope. And so if someone is struggling with drugs, if someone is struggling with drug addiction, and again, it is very big here in the States, but the reason, part of it is because it's big business. There are people that benefit from it. If we wanted to really get rid of drugs could be wiped out. Somebody has to let drugs into this country, but because there's a market, right? But why is there a market? Because there's a market of pain. People are playing on and preying on the pain of hurting, wounded souls, because that's who sustains the drug market. It's not people that are really, no one's using it. We have what people would call recreational use. But when you become addicted, where it takes over your life, that's not recreational use. That's fulfilling getting it to feel some hole in the soul. And that's when it becomes a major problem. That's what we're facing in this nation.
And also looking at the music industry in the United States, it's such a surprise to see, because back in the day, that would be 20 years ago, 25 years ago, the rap artist, for example, coming out of that R&B kind of movement at the time, they used their music to describe the problems of society.
Yes.
And some of them, I would argue, such as Tupac is a favorite of mine, really is one of the major poets of our time. When we look back to the British and the English poets, we have Lord Byron and all of that, which we were taught about in literature school or at the university. But there are modern day really poets that describe current affairs with a critical eye and really bring to light iniquity, injustice, lack of truth, corruption. And you used to have that, but there's been an involvement in American music industry as well. As to now, it's all about enjoying the drugs. And the view of women is something that I react very strongly on. It's like a production of misogyny also into the young minds that are listening to all this music as well. What are your thoughts on this talk?
My thoughts on this is that you're right. 25 years ago, when rap artists began to really come onto the scene and people took notice to what they were saying, they spoke prophetically, profoundly with a message. Some did not like it, but they only described what they saw, what they lived, what was exposed. And they were really exposing police corruption. They were exposing issues that happened, for instance, in the inner city. And so they told us what was really happening, and they expressed their heart. They did it in such a way that they were able to then earn a living, if you will, because they were able to put pen to the paper. Today, what we are finding in music, when you look at the music, and you talked about me being an empowerment speaker. Yes, I have traveled many parts of the world, bringing encouragement, bringing empowerment, bringing hope, and speaking to girls and as well as young men. But when you think about what the music message that has spoken to girls, you have girls that have no self-esteem, low self-esteem, no sense of self-worth because of what they are hearing about themselves. So when you talk about the degradation that is spewed out with music today, it is very difficult for me to even listen to. And I have to be very honest with that. So there's a program that I've worked with for 21 years. It's actually called Youth Striving for Excellence. Every year, I spend a couple of months, I go in and I teach purity. I teach young people about sex, the original way, the way it was originally planned, which was for husband and wives only before it became, as illicit as it is today. And I teach them morals. I impart values to them. And I always ask them, Hanne, let me hear the music, because I don't listen to it. I can't handle it. I'll be honest. I can't allow that to get into my spirit, because I think that what many of the lyrics today, in terms of how women are projected, it is something that has set many girls up to become pregnant, that have set many girls up, that have led to these girls getting caught up in human trafficking, sex trafficking, so many issues, because they've been taught that their value is between their legs. And I teach them that your value is not what is between your legs, it is what is between your head. And that means you have a brain, you can think, and you can make more powerful choices. So the essence of it is to help them understand what their value and their worth is. But the music today, I cannot allow myself to listen to it. So it has gotten worse over the years. And so now it's to the point that I don't even allow them to tell me the lyrics. I just know that it's something that I need to speak about that will give them a alternative. And that's what our young people need today. They need to have an alternative, because the way that Western culture is, you turn on the television or you go online or you go on any social media site, you can easily see right in your face, things that we never saw 25 years ago, that it would be very difficult for me as a parent to want a young child to be exposed to. So those kinds of things, yes, we've decreased in what's value, what is worth, our Christian values, our morals. Those things are not seemingly as important. We've got to get back. We've got to get back.
That also speaks for the good self-esteem.
Yes.
I mean, when a girl walks into a room, let's say a club, and she slept with 7 of the boys there, and they're all giggling and pointing at her and calling her some bad name,
Yes.
You know what I mean? What does she feel? How does she assess her self-worth? And also considering all the abortion that so many women also choose to go through due to the shame of becoming pregnant with somebody that doesn't love you at all and that you know doesn't love you. And the question also about having sex with all these partners that you know do not love you. They don't want to come near you because they enjoy you and they love you. It's just a physical thing happening on Tinder or what all these portals are being called. So I do think that this 1960s cultural revolution that brought in all these new ways of looking at life, saying, no, forget about the traditional family, that's just something old-fashioned. Forget about marriage, you can do whatever you want. Forget about all the stuff that we were supposed to forget about. I think that we threw the baby out with the water, so to speak, because so many of those rules, for example, from the 10 Commandments, don't lie. Don't steal. What would happen, Dr. B,
don't commit adultery.
I just lied to you? Of course you wouldn't respect me.
Exactly.
You'll find out why was she there saying this and that, and it turns out she's a liar. Next time I meet you, I'll find it to be hard to look into your eyes because I know that you look down on me because you found out I was the liar. So how to build good self-esteem?
And you know, you bring up that interesting point, the 10 Commandments. How much better would our world be if we really just simply, as a country, as a world, followed if you don't want to call them commandments, call them principles, okay? If we just followed those 10 principles that God put in His Word. We don't have to be so deep about it, right? But those are powerful and they were put there for a reason. And it's what you said. Why is it that we shouldn't lie? Why is it? Because it does something internally to you. Because you cannot truly value and love and see yourself as a person of integrity if you know that lying is a part of your character. And so those are checks and balances that we need. And so in terms of how we look at ourselves and having good self-esteem and our world being able to function better, there's a reason that there were commandments put in place. There's a reason that there's a Bible. And if we could just believe that it was there to protect us, it's not to hurt us. It's like a parent. Parents are not meant to be their child's friend when the child is at a formative age where they need rules, guidance, and structure. Be their friend when they grow up and they have their own children and your relationship has changed. So you have too many parents trying to be a child's friend, and then so when the child needs you to be a parent and you try to get tough, they don't want to hear it. God put parental guidance in place for a purpose, just like the Bible was put in place for a purpose. The commandments, everything has a purpose. And if we don't understand it, then we abuse it. We suffer the consequences for it. That's why we're saying. So what you're talking about is important. What we're discussing today, I don't know how many girls are watching, or young women are watching. You talked about what if they were to have sex with these men and then they see them or what have you. How are they to feel about themselves? Well, if I could just show one demonstration. I have here, this is just a piece of coal. A coal does not really have a lot of value, not on face value. It's just a piece of coal. But coal miners, they go into the uttermost part of the world, Hanne. They go deep down. They get the same coal that we throw away, we toss out, and they get the impurities out of it. They put it through the presses, they put it through the fire. They get all of those impurities out of it until that coal that we don't realize is worth so much more becomes this stunning diamond. Well, we will throw away coal, but who do you know would throw away a diamond? That's how I tell women you are. You may have been treated like a piece of coal. You may look like coal, but you have to understand your life, your value, you're worth way more than being someone's cheap thrill one day, and then the next day they don't even know you. They don't even look at you. You give away yourself, and then they don't see you. They don't treat you like a precious diamond. They'll only treat you like that. Men will only treat women the way women allow themselves to be treated. We train people how to treat us. So we've got to get back to being able to see ourselves as people of value, people of worth. And this is what's called that paragon diamond. It's a replica. A paragon is a 100 carat perfect cut diamond, but it's also describing a person of high honor, high integrity, high excellence, a person who has high standards. That's a person who sees themselves as a paragon. She will not be in the bed with 7 or 8 men. She will not reduce herself to a sex object. And that's why we have to make sure that our girls are not listening to music that so degrades them that they feel that the only value that they have is what, again, is between their legs. That is not what gives us value. What gives us value is what Jesus Christ did on that cross that makes us all worthy to be loved and to be treated with honor and respect and to see ourselves as men and women of value. So important.
We have come all the way from Europe to listen to the Doctor of Hope, Dr. Brenda Caldwell. Thank you very much for taking out of your precious time to joining us here at the Herland Report discussing drug abuse and also the way out.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.